So good morning or good afternoon, depending where you are. But anyway, good morning from Singapore and welcome to the second virtual coffee chat from OnRobot here on our YouTube live channel. So last time on the first session I talked about the why of collaborative automation, and today I'm going to talk about the when to start collaborative automation, particularly for SMEs. Today it might be a little bit shorter than last time, maybe 25-30 minutes, and then we including a Q&A sessions which we are going to have at the end. So grab your mug with your best brew, and I'm talking about coffee here, and sit back, relax, and let's get going. So first I'm going to do just a very short recap of the first session we had, followed by another session about where I'm going to talk about 9 points of the when to start collaborative automation. So in the first session I started by giving 6 key reasons why SMEs are doing automation. The first one was the lack of people and rising labor cost, which was about 90% of SMEs. Second point is improving competitiveness and efficiency, which is 70% of SMEs. The third point was improving quality and repeatability in your production, which is about 63% of SMEs. Point 4 was improvement of production processes, which is 57% of SMEs. Fifth point was reduction of work accidents, 35% SMEs, and the last point of the 6 points I discussed was introducing innovations, which is about 30% of SMEs. So these were the 6 key points of why companies or SMEs particularly are introducing collaborative automation. I also went through a few points of why collaborative automation, not just automation, but collaborative automation. And the key point, at least in my point of view, is increasing the flexibility you have in your production. And the key thing, of course, with SMEs is the high mix, low volume, where flexibility in your production is really, really crucial. Of course, you're able to, when you do collaborative automation, you're able to work around the clock, 24/7 with robots being there doing the job for you, doing your task for you. You have less errors. As humans, we tend to do mistakes. When we get tired and so on. And you also have, you don't need shift workers or temp workers, which increase. Which by doing collaborative automation will increase your shipping time, you have less of errors and so on. Of course, that also lowers your cost, which is also very, very important. You can also improve your inspection and quality control in your automation. When you do collaborative automation, you can upgrade your employee skills and have higher employee empowerment, which is also very, very important. You can basically use your workers for higher value tasks rather than having them just do very manual and basic labor. And that will also lead to improved employee welfare, improved customer satisfaction, which obviously is going to motivate your workers, which again will lead to improved employee. You can also improve your employee safety, so when you don't do manual labor but you have collaborative robots and collaborative grippers and end effectors doing the job for you, you're having improved employee safety, less accidents, less time lost, and less cost. So all this will basically help you future-proof your production and future-proof your company. So when is the right time as an SME to start collaborative automation or to start automation in general? So the why and the when is in many senses very, very similar, okay? But the first one and the key point, I think, and particularly now, or if you look back over the past 1.5 years, obviously the key reason why you would consider automating is COVID-19. It's still on, it's still going to be here for months to come, unfortunately, but that's the fact. It's the new now, it's a new reality of where we are. So that is a key reason. Why is that? it could be shortage of staff. I mean, many of you probably have had reasons, you know, or have issues with getting your staff to your factories to do the job. You know, maybe you had to completely close down for a period. Maybe you had to, maybe you've been facing, you know, issues, you know, where you had to at least slow down and being able to do less production, which obviously an issue, especially for an SME. You might have been facing, you know, social distancing, which is the new term. We're all talking about social distancing, where you cannot have as many workers in your factory, or you're not able to cram them down in the same space. You know, and SMEs are typically, especially facing space constraint, so not having the issue or not being able to having the same number of people in the same area will obviously affect you as well as an SME. And another thing that could have been affecting you or this COVID period is, you know, the risk of contaminating your products or contaminating your equipment, which obviously is a big issue, not only within your company itself, but also you have to think about the products that you're actually shipping on either to another factory or to your end user, you know, where you're risking having products that are already contaminated by people touching them and so on. So that, for me, in my opinion, is the key reason why the when is the now. Now is a great time for you as an SME to consider automation. Second point, which is somewhat related in some areas, is the lack of qualified staff or qualified operators. So the youth of today, you know, they want to have better jobs than their parents. They don't want to do the 3Ds, as we talk about in automation, the dull, the dirty, the dangerous jobs. You know, they want to be engineers, they want to be computer gamers, you know, they want to be maybe doctors, they want to be something, you know, in a clean environment, you know, air-con environment like most of us are in these days. They don't want to be out there in the production, you know, getting their hands dirty, risking injuring themselves, you know, or having so-called dull or boring jobs, basically. You know, they want to do something different, something better than, in many cases, their parents have been doing in the past. So that leads to, you know, the lack of being able to find qualified staff or finding operators that have been properly trained in the past, you know, which leads to many of you might have to find what do you call it, part-time staff or freelancers. And we all know freelancers, they might not have been properly trained, they might be very unreliable. This is what I hear from many factories, you know, where they're bringing in freelancers or part-time staff, you know, they show up today, tomorrow they're not there, and you have a big issue because you have nobody to do the task that you're required to do. So that's point number 2. Point number 3 for me, and also what we hear from the SMEs in general, is that sometimes you might have a very high number of work accidents or health-related issues. You know, if you have especially those, let's say the dangerous jobs, of course, it could be polishing, sanding, things like that. You know, where you're using machinery and your your staff are hurting themselves because of it. But it could also just be a simple thing as you know, moving boxes around or taking items from an assembly line and putting it into a box. Then you have to lift the box. You know, you do the same movement day in, day out, and that for sure is going to create issues with your staff. You know, that health-related issues. Their backs might be hurting and so on. So if that's an issue you have in your production, you know, it could also lead to unhappy, unmotivated staff, very harsh staff turnover, but ultimately will hit your bottom line, will hit your cost, right? So are you facing such issues right now? Then for sure the when is the now for when to start automation. Point 4, loss of competitiveness. Again, refers back to when the why I mentioned earlier. You know, a big part of why companies, especially SMEs, are starting to look at automating, or why they're automating, is because lack of competitiveness. And that can come from many different reasons. Why? One could be high product wastage, you know. So as I said earlier, manual labor, we cannot do things consistently, you know, with the same precision and the same repeatability for hours in a day. It's just not possible for us. So that's one reason why you could look at installing robots or collaborative applications to do the task, or at least the most basic task as a start. So it could also be increasing labor costs. That is something we are seeing across the globe. It doesn't matter where you are, what country you're in. Increasing labor cost is something that is affecting all of us, no matter what industry you're in. It could also be that your competitors, your key competitors have already automated, but you have not. So that is another reason why you might be losing competitiveness. So again, that is another reason when is the now. So if you're losing competitiveness, definitely now is a good time for you to start looking at automating your processes, especially collaborative automation if you're an SME. There could be another thing. Maybe you're already outsourcing certain jobs in your production, or maybe you're considering doing it. It could be because of labor cost reasons. You think, okay, let me send it to a low-cost country somewhere, where they can do it cheaper than I can do it myself. But of course, one of the things that you're risking with outsourcing things is your supply chain. Are you finding suppliers that can consistently give you the right products? Are they giving you the products at the right quality? These are some of the risks that you incur or you're facing if you're outsourcing your jobs. And it might also, if they're not getting your product in time, or if you're not getting the right quality, it will also increase your cost and your risk of finishing your own products and your own delivery times. So that's a very high risk. So nowadays, you have products like what OnRobots are doing. We constantly come up with new type of products that are not seen in the market before. We're improving it. So a lot of the things you might have been able to do in the past, you're now able to do with fairly easy and fairly fast, without making it too difficult, needing too many engineering solutions to be able to do it. Especially collaborative automation now is actually very easy and not that difficult to do. So that is something you can consider as well in case you have been looking at doing outsourcing, already doing it, and maybe bringing that back to your own production and doing it yourself. Point 6 could be that maybe you're considering some new processes, or you're having some new products that you need to do for a new client, and you don't really have the technology to do it. Maybe your staff don't have the skills to do it. You don't have the expertise and so on. Why don't you let a robot do it? As I said again, a lot of new technologies are coming that are able to do jobs that maybe you need to do, or help you to do the jobs or the new products and new processes you're looking at now in your automation. Talk to companies like OnRobot. We can support you in these things together with our partners, finding ways to help you do those new products or those new processes that you're looking at, but you don't really know how to do. So talk to us about things like that. So that's another area where the when could be the now. Point 7. Sometimes it's hard for you to differentiate yourself from your competitors, right? Maybe you're doing very similar or pretty much the same products, just in a slightly different color or a slightly different shape, but basically they're doing the same. So how do you differentiate yourself from your competitors? Now, one of the things that the COVID-19 issue has brought up is that especially big companies are looking at how to change the supply chain. They have been too relying on certain countries or certain suppliers. Maybe they only have one key supplier, and during COVID-19 that particular supplier have not been able to send enough or parts, or no parts at all. And of course that's a big issue. So a lot of companies now are looking at changing their supply chain. They want to have supply chain closer to their own factories. They want to have more suppliers, not just relying on one or two, so they don't run into these kind of issues again that they have been facing for the past year or year and a half. So this is one area where you as a manufacturer now have the chance to upgrade yourself, to go in and automating your process. So you as a supplier to maybe some MNC somewhere, you can tell them, okay, we are now automated this process, we can produce 24/7, even if our staff can't go to the factory, we can still produce, we can still deliver. So be forward thinking, think about how you can future-proof your supply chain, and how you can future-proof and guarantee that you will always be able to supply parts, products to your clients around the world. So that's another reason why the when should be the now, especially because of COVID. Point 8, sometimes you might face bottlenecks in your production. It can be for different reasons. It can be certain times of the year that you have a higher pressure on delivering products and so on. It could also be, that as an SME, your supply or your orders are very irregular. Some months you have very high order volume, other months you have very low. So you have to keep on, bringing in either more people or do extra shifts or have part-timers come in and so on. In fact, if you look at the manufacturers globally, about 1/3 of all manufacturers globally are either at or near full capacity in their production line. So if you have orders that are going up and down constantly, and you have this issue of bottlenecks and so on in your production, bringing in collaborative automation now is an ideal way of minimizing that risk. Where you can always get your robots to basically work more shifts or more hours during the weekends and so on, in case you have extra orders coming in, rather than having to bring in more staff or bring in temporary staff that you need to train and so on, and bringing in, which brings another issue. Also quality will be affected if the laborers are not properly trained. So that's another time where the when is the now in terms of bringing in automation in general, but especially collaborative automation. So of course, having bottlenecks, that could either bring in delay in your deliveries, which your end user for sure is not going to be happy. It can increase your cost and lower your profit in case you had to work overtime or bring in extra staff and so on. Or it could also increase your price, which for sure your end user is not going to be happy about. So again, if you have bottlenecks in your production and these, some of the issues you're facing is your delivery schedule or your higher cost and so on, definitely look into automating some of those tasks that you're currently doing manually. The last item of today, item 9, as I told you, I'm going to bring up 9 reasons when is the right time. It's basically, which is kind of related to all the other points I'm talking about, is basically future-proofing your business, right? So think long-term. Don't just think, when you talk about ROI and so on, you just don't think about, it has to be a few months only. If it's not within a few months ROI, then I'm not going to do it. No, you got to think long-term. The COVID-19 situation, yeah, okay, maybe we haven't seen something in our lifetime similar to that, but is COVID-19 going to be a single affair and it's never going to happen again? Of course not. It's going to happen again. Maybe it's going to happen 10 years from now, maybe 15 years from now, maybe 50 or 100 years from now. I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't have a crystal ball. But what I can tell you is it's going to happen again, for sure. So the faster you consider that scenario, the faster you're future-proofing your production, the safer you will be. And a lot of issues that you're facing now or have been facing for the past 1.5 years, plus some of these other issues you might be facing, whether it's been COVID-19 or not, by future-proofing, by automating your production, or at least start automating some of the process, you will overcome a lot of these issues. So that's the 9th reason why the when might be the now in terms of when to start automating. So I hope this has been of some use to you, whether you are currently considering automating or do more automation, and you're considering what are the right reasons to automate and when should I start doing it. So I hope this was a little bit of help. but we always will willing to help you. Contact us if you need more information of how we can support you on this. So now I discussed the why, I've discussed the when, and the next session will be the where, i.e. where should I start with automation? What kind of process are the best to start with, or the easiest to start with if I never automated before? So that will be in the next session. So again, I hope you have enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. Please follow us on our social media channels. You can start by subscribing on this YouTube channel, the OnRobot YouTube channel, as a first thing. But we are on LinkedIn, we are on Facebook, we are on Twitter and so on. So you can find us on many social media where we keep on updating you on new things we are doing, and also talking about automation in general, and especially collaborative automation, how that can help you in your company, in your industry, and in your various applications. So thank you again for joining us. See you soon, and stay safe out there. Bye. All right, I was a little bit faster at the end. I got too excited, I almost forgot about the Q&A session, so I was saying goodbye and everything, so sorry about that. But anyway, we're still here. So again, I hope you learned a few things in case you are in a situation where you are considering doing collaborative automation in your production. So now it's open for any questions you might have. We also have my colleague Inge here who will read the questions for those who are sending it in. You can do it in the chat box. So go ahead. I'm ready in case you have questions. Is there anything, Inge, or nothing in yet?
I have one question.
Yep.
Can OnRobot assist us in calculating ROI for new robotic application with your products?
Can we assist you in calculating ROI? I would say yes and no, in the sense that normally there's a lot of information that is required. Some of this information is probably not something you might want to share with us as well. So we won't do the ROI for you, but what I can do, in case you're interested, we can share a file with you. It's basically an Excel sheet where you can do your own calculations, and everything is basically calculated for you. You just have to put in some cost figures. So in case you're interested in that, send us an email at apac@onrobot.com, and we can send you that file for you to do your own calculations. So that's how we can assist you with that. Any other questions?
Yeah, is OnRobot also doing system integration?
OnRobot is a manufacturer. So what we do is we manufacture at the end of it, like you see here, for instance. We don't do system integration. So basically, the way we work is that we work locally around the region with partners, as we call them. So they are typically distributors or system integrators themselves. So once you have an inquiry, once you have a project you're looking at, we will work with a specific partner depending on what robot brand you're looking at, or what application you're looking at, or which country or region you're in, and we will work with them to support you on this specific project. So again, if you have a project you're looking at, or if you're looking for quotation for OnRobot product, just contact us and we will connect you with the relevant partner for whatever project or whatever product that you are interested in. So that's how we are working.
We received two more questions. The first one is, which industry has the highest rate of collaborative automation? And then how do we get in contact with OnRobot if we are looking for quotation or more information?
Okay, so let me answer the second question first. So basically, the easiest way of contacting us, of course, you could go to our website. There's contact information there. But you can also just write an email to APAC, APAC, @onrobot.com. And that will ultimately end up at my site if it's from my region. But of course, it depends which region you're based in. So you can either go to the website, or if you're in APAC region, send it to apac@onrobot.com. Now, in terms of which industry we are seeing the most collaborative applications, it's a good question. I mean, if you look at automation in general, of course, it's still the major part is still happening in the automotive sector. Sometimes it's also very different from country to country. If you go to India, for instance, which again is within my region, by far the most automation is done in the automotive industry, and that also goes for collaborative automation. If you come to Singapore, where we are based here, majority is within the electronics and semiconductor industry. Not particularly collaborative automation, but automation in general. But what we tend to look at, rather than looking at industry, we're looking at what are the most common applications that are automated. And here, number one for sure, and this also for collaborative automation, is basically pick and place or material handling. So picking up objects and then putting them into a box, or picking up boxes, putting them onto a pallet. So that kind of material handling is by far the biggest application that we're seeing in the collaborative space. But it's getting very wide now, and we are seeing collaborative automation basically everywhere. Not only in typical industry, but also in hospitality sector, in health sector, throughout cafe restaurants. We see it in agriculture. We see it in banks, many different places. So there's hardly anywhere you can't automate with collaborative automation. And especially with products like OnRobot, because everything we do is electric. So you don't have any issues with needing, air supply and pneumatics and all this kind of thing. So yeah, that's kind of the best answer I can give you without being very specific. So I hope that helped you out well. Any more questions? Still got time if you have. Okay, it seems there's no more questions. So again, thank you for attending. Now we have answered the why and the when. The next section, we are going to be looking at the where or the what. So basically, what type of applications are the most common applications or the easiest to start with, especially if you're an SME, that are not familiar with automation and typically doing most things manual right now. So that's going to be the next session. So again, look forward to it. We will send more information about when that's going to happen. So again, thank you and stay safe out there, and see you later.